Welcome to another transfer tips video ahead of Double Gameweek 25. I'm going to briefly discuss the confirmed doubles for Double Gameweek 29, which could be the very biggest Double Gameweek left of the season. So I'm going to talk about those fixtures very briefly, the teams that will be doubling before moving on to the transfer tips. 12 players to buy, hold, sell, and skip ahead of this upcoming Double Gameweek. If you end up enjoying this video, be sure to drop it a like and also subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 20,000 subscribers and trying to get this video to over 200 likes. That'd be massively appreciated. But without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. Those at the bottom of your screen playing on the Tuesday 4th of April and Wednesday 5th of April will all have a double game week. So that includes Bournemouth, Brighton, Leeds United, Nottingham Forest, Leicester City, Aston Villa, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United, Brentford, West Ham United, and Newcastle United. All of those teams will be having a double game week in 29. Those are all confirmed. You can see on your FPL app and on the website already. And remember, Arsenal, Man City will not be doubling in game week 29, but they still offer some really enticing options in this double game week. So you don't necessarily need to have 15 players with a double game week if you're bench boosting in game week 29, because you have some really good single game week options. Arsenal are at home to Leeds and Man City are at home to Liverpool, although you might argue that's a tough fixture. Liverpool haven't been the same this season. So this is going to be a really interesting double game week to tackle, and a lot of people will even use the free hit in this specific game week if they don't use it in game weeks 25 or 28. And remember, 25 is a mixture of blanks and doubles, whilst game week 28 will be one of the biggest blank game weeks of the season. The same goes for 32. So that is the game week 29 confirmation. All those teams that will be doubling. Let me know your thoughts in terms of which players you're looking to be bringing in, and I'll be having all of this taken into account for the best wildcard team video that I'm going to make for double game week 25 as well. But now let's jump into the transfer tips and the players to buy, hold, sell, and skip. Despite Salah not having a great season to his lofty standards in FPL, he still mustered 5 double-digit returns in this season, and he's got 8 goals and 6 assists, which is a decent return for most players, but maybe not for Salah and what we're used to seeing from him. And you look at the Champions League, he scored and assisted despite Liverpool losing 5-2 at home to Real Madrid, and he's now the top scorer in the Champions League. It's between him and Kylian Mbappe right now for the Golden Boot in that competition. But Salah's stats always look good. His XG is actually higher than his goal, so there's a bit of underperformance there. And also his expected assists is pretty high, matching his assist figure so far. A good amount of key passes in 40. You have the big chances and big chances created. I think maybe the big chances tends to be a little bit higher, but honestly, all of these stats are still very good. The shot volume is there, but Salah has struggled for large parts of the season. In recent games in FPL, though, he's got 17 points in his last 2 games, and we were maybe anticipating a bit of a Liverpool comeback. Then they go 2-0 up against Real Madrid, but then things fall apart. Salah, though, has looked good in the last 3 games with assists, goals, you name it, and I think he could be a great option in this double game week, and he could still remain the best option to captain. I think it's between him, Saka, and Odegaard, and I'm currently favouring Saka, but after that performance against Real Madrid, I'm actually more encouraged by Salah, despite Liverpool being quite woeful, especially in terms of the defence. But Salah remains a good option as always, and he's the second most transferred in player this week with good reason. I think as we get to the deadline, he'll become the most over his fellow teammate Cody Gakpo. It's not often that Trent Alexander-Arnold will have less than 20% ownership, but there's good reason for that. Liverpool have been shocking defensively all season, and after last night, the way Real Madrid came back and demolished Liverpool and created so many chances, that doesn't fill with confidence. But as I've said all along in the best free hit team video, for example, I don't mind having Robertson and Trent for 1 game week only. I think there's a high upside. They can keep 1, maybe even 2 clean sheets, and then also get an attack and return or bonus points. But beyond game week 25, I will not trust Liverpool at all to keep clean sheets, especially when they face Manchester United in game week 26 as well. Trent always has good underlying numbers. Look at the expected assists, the key passes, the big chances created, but is it worth having him in the long term all the way until the end of the season? Probably not. But if you're looking to wildcard around game week 27 or even around that period, 28, 29, whatever it may be, I think it's worth having Trent for the next 4 or 5 game weeks and then ultimately just deciding to part with him and not buy him once again this season. But for the next 4 or 5 game weeks, I think Trent is a really good purchase. I could see some clean sheets there, possibly against Bournemouth and also in this double game week. And you could always get 1 or 2 attacking returns that makes this transfer worthwhile. He's the 3rd most transferred in player this week. It's between him, Gakpo, and Salah for first position. You've also got the likes of Saka and Tarkowski in the top 5. But Trent will become more popular despite Liverpool's struggles, and I think he is worth it, but only for the next 4 or 5 game weeks. The last buy of this video is Tarkowski. He's the 4th most transferred in player. That's very rare for an Everton player, and that's 2 clean sheets in a row at home for Sean Dyche and Everton, and I think they could keep another one against Aston Villa, despite Villa being very good offensively in recent matches and the form of players like Ollie Watkins. But I would back a clean sheet here, and then possibly in some of the games to come, like Nottingham Forest or Brentford. But just like with Trent, he's only a good purchase for the next 3 game weeks, you could argue, and also with this double, it makes him more enticing. You could also go for Mikalenko or Cody. You don't necessarily need to go for Tarkowski himself, but I think he has the most attacking threat. You look at the XG and expected assists, very good for a centre-back, and you can't ask for much more. He's also very cheap. He's going to go up in price very soon, but that doesn't really matter too much either way. He's very accessible, and ultimately, I would recommend him. He's the only Everton player that I would definitely recommend. Even the likes of Pickford, I'm a bit unsure about him. Not to mention, Iwobi is probably the best attacker. I just don't really like the Everton assets in general. Tarkowski's the best of a bad bunch, and I think he's good for this double game week and also potentially for game weeks 26 and 27. And if you want someone for the long term, Tarkowski won't be the answer. The same goes for Trent Alexander-Arnold, and ultimately the only long-term buy that I've recommended here today is Mohamed Salah. The first hold of this video is Ben White, and I can understand why some of you are looking to sell him, maybe to free that slot up for someone like Saka or Odegaard in the midfield, and that's the only reason why I would possibly sell Ben White. But would I do something like Ben White to Trent Alexander-Arnold just to go for someone else entirely, not necessarily an Arsenal player? Not really. I'd probably rather keep Ben White for the rest of the season, or at least for the next 6 game weeks. And when I look at all the Arsenal defenders, there's not much to split them, and I don't think there's a particular standout. Saliba's the highest scoring one with 97 points, and he's also the best for bonus, but you've also got Gabriel, who's got the most attacking threat in terms of scoring goals. You've got Zinchenko, who's got a mixture of goals and assists, but primarily assists. He's only got 1 Premier League goal so far in his career. And as for Ben White, it's the bonus points that he's pretty good at, and not only that, he can be subbed off quite early, which can work in your favour at times, as I've discussed in recent transfer tips videos as well. His numbers aren't anything special, but the expected assist is decent, I guess, especially for Ben White standards, and a decent amount of big chances created and key passes. But with Ben White, what you're mainly relying on are clean sheets and maybe 1 or 2 bonus points from time to time, and the fixtures are there for Arsenal to start getting some clean sheets, but only 2 have been kept at home all season, despite Arsenal flying at the Emirates. They have struggled a bit recently there, but fixtures like Bournemouth at home and Crystal Palace at home, you would expect Ben White and Arsenal players to do really well there. They've got the double game week in 25 and also in game week 29. So ultimately, Ben White, I think, is definitely worth inclusion, and I think he's still worth keeping. Would I buy him in? Maybe not, but he's still one of my favourite Arsenal defenders, to be quite frank. He's quite cheap at 4.7 million, and he's worth the money still. So I would hold Ben White. I would definitely not sell him. And then it's just a matter of which Arsenal player you want in terms of the back line. And oddly enough, I would still put Ben White in the mixture, and maybe even as my favourite Arsenal defender. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Zinchenko is also arguably a bit safer and also has more attacking potential, but I have to say Ben White is maybe a bit underrated and can still get you plenty of returns. Arsenal just need to fix up defensively because recent performances haven't been good enough. The same can be said for Nketiah. The only reason I would sell him is to free up that Arsenal slot for Saka or Odegaard, who are the 2 best Arsenal options in general. Nketiah has some very good underlying numbers considering the amount of minutes he's played, but ever since that haul against Man United, he has failed to return in all competitions across his last 5 games, which isn't good enough. And whilst he has had some moments winning the penalty against Man City and also setting up Odegaard for an open goal against Aston Villa, he just hasn't been good enough, missing some crucial chances. And a lot of Arsenal fans want a front three of Martinelli, Trossard and Saka, and whilst that is possible, I would expect Arteta to stick with Nketiah, keep the faith, start him in both games in game week 25, and I think he'll score against either Leicester and or Everton. Let's see what happens there, of course, but I would hold Nketiah. If I was looking to buy a striker this week, I think Nketiah is one of the best for game week 25 specifically, but despite the great fixtures for Arsenal in the long term, I'm not so sure about his future beyond game week 27, let's say. It's obviously difficult to put a timestamp on when Gabriel Jesus will return. I don't think he'll be rushed back in, but I don't think Nketiah will be a season keeper, of course, and ultimately he's someone to buy for the next 3 or 4 game weeks. Beyond that, it would be a big concern, but then again, you might have the wild card to get out of that situation. Kieran Trippier is the most transferred out player this week, and with good reason. He blanks in 25, faces Man City away in game week 26, and also long term, you've got other defenders who might double in 25, 27, or even 29. Some of them will even double in 2 of those 3 double game weeks. So it makes sense to sell Kieran Trippier, but a commonly asked question will be, should I sell Trippier or Luke Shaw? I'd rather keep Trippier and sell Luke Shaw, especially if you're wildcarding a bit later on. So it all depends on your strategy, of course, because if you're going to wildcard around game week 27, then then you could just sell Trippier right now, bring him back in on the wildcard in 27, but you will lose a lot of value tied up in him, and it might become difficult to afford him and get him back into your side. He's the best defender in the game. He's got an incredible amount of big chance created, key passes, expected assists, and most importantly, bonus points. And I think Newcastle will bounce back once Bruno Guimaraes and Nick Pope return from their suspension. So I think Trippier is a great option long term. And unless you're wildcarding in Game Week 27 and have that locked in, I would definitely hold on to him in the long term. He's a seasoned keeper for me, and I'd rather have him over Luke Shaw. So let me know your thoughts on this one. But for me, Kieran Trippier is worth keeping. And I wouldn't say he's a differential by the time we get to Game Week 27. A lot of people will try to get him back in for that time period, Game Week 27 and beyond, and they may struggle to do so. So by keeping him, you will set yourself a big advantage in that respect. But of course, it may be difficult for some of you, especially if you want to get to Trent Alexander-Arnold or fund a move to Salah. So it's very team dependent and a difficult question to answer and to cover every single scenario. But ultimately, if you can do it, I would hold on to Kieran Trippier. Ideally, I would keep Luke Shaw and Kieran Trippier until the end of the season, and I think they're two of the best defenders in the game. But if I had to sell one of them right now, it would be Luke Shaw. He has worse fixtures than Kieran Trippier. I think Man United will get fewer clean sheets in this time period, and although they have a double game week in 29 and that plum fixture at home to Southampton in 27, you could easily bench Luke Shaw in 25, where he blanks in game weeks 26 and 28. So ultimately, you could sell him, and the underlying numbers aren't that great. I don't see too many clean sheets for Man United over the next few game weeks, and of course I could be wrong about that, but I think it is worth selling him, or at least considering that possibility. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. The underlying numbers aren't that great, and for me, Kieran Trippier is still a step above, and I think Newcastle will get more clean sheets over the next 6 game weeks. So ultimately, I would sell Luke Shaw. But then again, if you can afford to keep him and Trippier, then there's nothing wrong with that, and you might be in a really good position, especially in game weeks like 27. The most popular transfer this week will be Kevin De Bruyne out for Mohamed Salah, and I would definitely endorse that and recommend it. Kevin De Bruyne has worse fixtures compared to Salah, fewer double game weeks, and also he is more of a rotation risk, especially with the Champions League. And actually heading into this game against Leipzig, Kevin De Bruyne was left out due to illness. He's got great underlying numbers. He can always produce a big return like he did against Arsenal, but Kevin De Bruyne is worth selling. It's a very simple move. I know that Bournemouth away fixture could be really good if he starts, but ultimately Salah should outscore him, whether it's in game week 25 specifically or over the next 4, 6 game weeks, you name it. I think it is a worthwhile move, and you're not going to feasibly captain De Bruyne anytime soon. So I would sell him, go to Mohamed Salah, and then in the long term, going into game weeks 30 and beyond, you could then downgrade Salah, go for these cheaper midfielders like Saka, Odegaard. You don't necessarily need a De Bruyne or someone like Salah, and I think Harry Kane is the second best premium in the game. But ultimately, right now, the best move for you is to sell De Bruyne to Mohamed Salah. Since the World Cup, Mitrovic produced a mega haul against Crystal Palace, a 15-pointer, but since then, 4 0-pointers, and he's constantly having these injury problems. He's got a knock right now. He could come back for that Wolves fixture in game week 25, but he's been off form, and with Fulham, they're still kicking on strong without him, and I would ultimately sell Mitrovic. You could go to Darwin Nunez, Eddie Nketiah, not to mention Harry Kane is still a viable option. I also like the likes of Watkins and Iheanacho, and you could even feasibly talk about someone like Joao Felix as well, but I would rather go to one of the others I mentioned beforehand, sell Mitrovic to one of those, and he's got great underlying numbers. Of course, he's had a good season overall, but the fixtures coming up aren't that great. No double game weeks there for Fulham, and Mitrovic is always an injury concern, so he's a very easy sell. And if I had to pick one forward to go to right now, apart from Eddie Nketiah or Nunez, who double in 25, I think Watkins could fit the bill really well. He doesn't blank in game week 28, he has a double in game week 29, and he doesn't blank in double game week 25. We are now in the skip section, and we've got a double game week player here in Ruben Neves. As I've said all week, and also way before when the doubles were confirmed, I would go nowhere near Wolves midfielders / attackers, and the same goes for Everton. With Ruben Neves, he's produced 3 double-digit returns this season and a 9-pointer, but it's nothing sustainable. A lot of his returns come from penalties or long-distance shots, and I think there are many better midfielders to have in the long term. And I know there's a big issue in Game Week 25 where players like Matoma and Rashford are going to blank, and you need someone to fill in, but I'd actually rather go for other players instead. Saka, Odegaard, Salah are the midfielders to really have in Game Week 25. After that, you could even go for a back 4 or back 5 to cater to these blanks in 25, and then beyond, you've got more doubles in 27 and 29. I just don't think Ruben Neves is worth a purchase, even for one game week only. On a free hit, you could maybe consider it, and I don't think it's a bad move necessarily, but I wouldn't trust him to return. The same can be said for any other Wolves attacker, and if I had to pick one from the Wolves ranks in the offensive positions, Ruben Neves would be it, but still, don't do it to yourself. I wouldn't go for Ruben Neves, and I don't think it's worth a purchase. This might be the most contentious part of the video, and I'm not trying to be controversial for the sake of it. I talked about skipping Gakpo a few weeks ago. He's shown a bit of form in the Premier League with returns in his last 2 games. He obviously was good in the World Cup and across the whole season for PSV Eindhoven, and his underlying numbers since Game Week 19 are better than Salah in some regards, especially in terms of the expected goals. He's got great fixtures coming up. Liverpool are second in the fixture ticker, only behind Arsenal over the next 6 game weeks. They've got doubles in 25 and 29, so he's not a bad purchase, and if you really are set on him, then go for it. Don't let me discourage you, but I think there are still 3 or 4 better Liverpool assets at least, including Robertson, Trent, Salah, and Darwin Núñez, with Salah being the best one of the lot. And Gakpo might be your accessible option. You might not be able to get to Salah, and Gakpo is the kind of easy switch. It basically incurs no hits, so it makes sense, and it's not a bad transfer at all. But would I go for Gakpo myself? Not really. Do I trust him beyond Game Week 25? No. Now, one kind of big question mark that might be eliminated is the fact that Liverpool are almost going to be eliminated against Real Madrid, and therefore they're going to focus more on the Premier League and getting into the top 4 or top 6, wherever it may be. So Gakpo's minutes might not be too big of a concern heading into the Premier League, but there's still that risk of Jota and Firmino knocking on the door, and his minutes could still be reduced as a result, whether it's in Game Week 25 or beyond. And there are so many midfielders that you'd want to get, especially after this blank/double game week in 25. You've got Mitoma, Rashford, the Arsenal midfielders, not to mention Man City midfielders you may want, Mohamed Salah, and many other options at your disposal as well in the midfield. So Gakpo isn't my favourite, and look, if you can't get to Salah and you really want a Liverpool attacker, then Gakpo's fine. I'd actually rather go for Darwin Núñez up front though. The last player covered today is Dwight McNeil, and in essence, all Everton midfielders/attackers. I wouldn't go for any of them, even on a free hit. If I had to pick one, it would be Iwobi. He's the player of the season for Everton so far. He's got 7 FPL assists, better underlying numbers. But with Dwight McNeil, I just don't really see it. Even on a free hit, I wouldn't want to go for him. I'd rather go for a single game week option, not to mention all the Arsenal and Liverpool midfielders/attackers that you have at your disposal. So I wouldn't go for McNeil, despite this double and some decent fixtures like Nottingham Forest away, where, to be fair, Nottingham Forest have been pretty good since the World Cup. So I wouldn't go for McNeil. Let me know if you would go for any Everton midfielders/attackers. I think the points will be had in the Everton ranks in terms of the defenders and the goalkeeper, but primarily the defenders like Tarkowski, who I've recommended earlier in this video. That's the only Everton asset that I'd really recommend for double game week 25. And even then, would I want Everton assets long term? Probably not. One big advantage though is that they won't blank in game week 28 when they face Chelsea away. So that's it. We've covered 12 players to buy, hold, sell and skip. Let me know if you disagree or agree with any of these picks. And thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to over 200 likes. Let's also push on towards 20,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and you can also become a patron or a channel member, patreon.com/DylanRCM, and you can become a member for as little as £3 per month for early access to videos and all of that. Be sure to check out the Discord server and the FPL League. All of that is there. I wish you all the best of luck for the rest of the season and for double game week 25, and I'll see you next time.